In this era of political polarization, how can the country overcome the hate that divides it? That's the question author and political commentator Sally Kohn tries to answer in her new book, The Opposite of Hate, a field guide to repairing our humanity. I sat down with Sally to talk about her experience with hate and what people often get wrong about it. Sally, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about your background. You are a self-described liberal commentator who used to work at Fox News. What was that experience like?
Unique.
How so, Sally?
I mean, it wasn't just that, let's be clear. It was also the lesbian part. Hello, world. You know, that, like, there weren't that many liberal lesbians who look like me on TV in general, on cable, but especially at Fox News. And, you know, the truth is, I spent 15 years of my career, for the beginning of my career, I was a community organizer. I traveled around the country helping people who wanted to make change in their towns, in their cities, in their schools, in their workplaces, do what they were doing and connect and do it better. And when I went to go, and I sort of fell into being a commentator and went to go work at Fox News, I thought they hated me. I mean, not only did I think some of their viewpoints were hateful, the policies and ideas that they supported, I thought they actually hated me, and that I would go there and they would be hateful in this, like, totalistic, all-encompassing, just nasty, monstrous way. Because that was my idea of conservatives. That was I'd only seen the worst things they'd ever said, the clips that I'd seen on TV, you know, on The Daily Show and whatever. I didn't really know any conservatives. I certainly didn't know anyone like Sean Hannity or Megyn Kelly. And what happened is, when I went to work there, two things happened. First of all, I'm not saying we agreed on policies. Sometimes we found things we could agree on. But I realized that as people, they were more complicated. They were nice to me. They were, in a lot of ways, caring, compassionate, kind. They were not just their beliefs, and they were not all just interpersonally hateful. And I realized I hated them. Like, I had walked in the door with all these stereotypes and preconceived notions, and I had written everyone off as their very worst, the worst thing they believed, the worst thing they ever said. And that led me to want to wrestle with the hate inside myself and understand why I do it and how I can be better, and hopefully how we can all be better.
Must have been extremely eye-opening, to say the least, for you.
I mean, completely, right? To, like, be able to meet someone like Sean Hannity, who blurbed my book, who in his blurb says we're friends, because it's true, we are.
Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, look, I still have, it's funny, I still have people, it's the most common question I get to this day, because I did a TED Talk about it. I mentioned it in TED Talk, and people liberals come up to me, and they kind of get really close to me, and they say, okay, but really, you can tell me, he's not really nice, right? And and I see my old self in my old beliefs in that too, because I couldn't imagine that this person who had said and done so many things that I thought were hateful could just be like a normal, nice person to me. Ask about my kid, ask about my partner, ask about my career. I'll be honest, he was the person who the most encouraged me to write this book. He loved my first TED Talk and the message in it about how we can communicate to each other kindly, and he, I swear, consistently was the one who was sending me messages saying, you gotta write this, you gotta write this, you gotta write this. So that reminded me that something that Brian Stevenson, who wrote the book Just Mercy, and who was one of my professors in law school, has a saying, and he says, none of us are as bad as the worst thing we've ever done. And I try to remember that for everyone. I don't want anyone to think I'm the worst thing I've ever done, or the worst thing I've ever thought, or the worst thing I've ever said. And I try hard, and sometimes it's really hard, to not think that other people are the worst thing that they've ever said or done or thought either.
You open the book with a story about yourself. You actually used to be a bully. You write about this. And you reached out to a woman that you picked on. What did she have to say?
Yeah, as many times as I've talked about this, every time I get a lump in my throat, I still feel so sad and disappointed in myself.
Even now?
Even now. Because I think of myself as a nice person, and none of us, look, I mean, a lot of what I've done in this book is laid bare my own mistakes, biases, errors, and the hope, because, we all have growing to do, we all have learning to do. For me, yeah, in elementary school, I was a bully. There was one girl in particular who I tormented. I tell, for me, the worst memory in the book. And I did. I eventually found her and apologized, which I really needed to do. But she didn't forgive me, which is also her right not to do, of course. And what she said was that it wasn't about an apology. It was about doing better and making myself better, and also helping others, fostering compassion, and helping spread that message in others, for others, and which is what ultimately I feel kind of came full circle, and what I hope I'm playing a small piece in doing.
That's what you're trying to do with this book now.
Thank you.
So have you figured out yet for yourself how to stop hating other people?
So this isn't a destination book, right? There's no mountaintop here, right? This is a journey book. And, one of the things I hope people take away from reading it is that we are all part of the problem, and so we all need to be part of the solution.
What's your biggest piece of advice for people on how to bridge the divides between us?
So I have some specific tools in the book about both the way we talk to each other, what I call connection speech, because the opposite of hate isn't love. You do not have to love someone to stop hating them. You have to understand that in spite of your disagreements and differences, by the way, which I think are great and important, and part of what make us great as people and as a country, and alongside those differences and disagreements, we have common humanity. We are connected as people. We have mutual dignity, equal respect. That we have to understand that.
But the opposite of hate, I want to just go back to that concept, because I think for some people that might be a little startling, that the opposite of hate is not love, in your view. Not to me.
I mean, linguistically, perhaps, but literally, no. I don't have to literally love. I don't even really have to like people to stop hating them, right? I have to understand that I don't have to demean and dehumanize and obliterate and just be nasty and cruel to people because they're different than me or because they disagree with me. That, in fact, those differences and disagreements are important and valuable and rich and really should be celebrated, and alongside a recognition of what connects us, of our common humanity, of our shared journey on this earth together. And so through that, there are specific ways we talk to each other with compassion and empathy and try to assume the best in each other. We need to come together more. We actually need what I call connection spaces, where we get out of our bubbles. There are, more than half of Americans don't know a Muslim. Most Clinton supporters don't know Trump supporter. Most Trump supporters don't know Clinton supporter. These are problems. We have segregated schools. We have segregated communities. And we need to address this with policy as well. Obviously, when we look at systemic bias, racial bias in our criminal justice system, in schools, in the economy, sexism in the workplace, etc. So it's at all these different levels. The answer is connection. That's how you combat hate.
Sally Kohn, thank you so much for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.